Hey guys, so this is my Titan HD Power Rack. It's a Rogue R3 clone that just came out a few months ago. It's basically the same in every way as a Rogue R3 in terms of its specs, but it's made in China and being imported by, I think it's a tractor supply company or something. They manufacture all kinds of different, or they have items manufactured in China and then resell them here in the US. But I took the risk on the rack. I was one of the first people to buy it, and they sold out of the shipment pretty early on. It was a little bit misleading in their listing, in their website. They had photos of like the Rogue R3 J cups and were passing them off as their own, which in fact you did not get this type of quality J cup. What I actually have here is the Rogue R3. This is the legitimate one of the uprights. I haven't put the rack together yet because I'm waiting to pull this one apart and give it to its new owner, but I thought I'd do a video before I got rid of it to kind of show you guys some of the key differences between the two racks. The price difference right now, the Titan HD rack is $400 shipped, no tax. The Rogue R3, on the other hand, is $695 plus shipping, and sometimes they'll run Black Friday deals, once a year where you can get free shipping or like shipping for $5. So you're talking, at least a $300 price difference between the two. Functionally, are they really that much different? No, but the quality difference between the two is really substantial. So let me just jump right into it and I'll start showing you some of the differences. The first thing that I noticed when I got the rack was on the website they were showing photos of, they had since taken them down, but they were showing photos of the, these are the Rogue Infinity J cups. Now you can see they're real beefy steel, they're welded front and back, 5/8 pin, and they're lined with UHMW to protect the knurling on the bar. Now, when the J cup showed up, you'll see that these are different. They're square edges. They're not welded all the way around. They're just welded on the side right here. The plate here is thicker, but this one is a little bit thinner than the stock Rogue. But the biggest difference that really disappointed me was that the stock Titan HD showed up with these rubber liners. I mean, it's pretty pathetic. These are just pieces of like poorly molded rubber, and the bolt heads were protruding above the rubber. So what happened was they would protrude up, you put your bar in, and rather than having a distribution of force between, across the whole plate, you have all the pressure concentrated just on the bolt head. So it ended up damaging your knurling on your bar more than if it wasn't there in the first place. So I was pretty disappointed with that. The fact that these were rubber, and you can see the molding. It's pretty bad. So I actually ended up ordering UHMW. I have access to woodworking tools and various tools, so I was actually able to cut these down, profile the edges, countersink the bolt heads, and so I actually had to make my own liners. They didn't come like this. And I made a couple of pairs, and I even I had some extra left over. I actually even passed that along to some people on the forum who were early adopters and purchasers of the rack. So right off the bat, you could see the quality difference between the J cups. The next thing was the pin pipe safeties. So I don't even, Titan isn't a fitness company. I don't even know if the guys lift or what the deal is. It looks as if they had just basically saw a photo of the Rogue R3 rack and saw how popular it was and just tried to make a duplicate based on the photos that they had seen. Well, if you look at the pin pipe, you have a 5/8 pin to this really beefy, I think it's a Schedule 80 thick pipe. Really thick, and it's not the full width, and it's open on both ends. So to change out, you just pull the pin, and then you can it's easy to do. The pin pipe safeties on the Titan rack, on the other hand, is a lot thinner steel, and you can notice the weight difference between the two. But what they did was pretty aggravating. Let me see if I can pull it out. It's a tight fit on some of these holes, but if you look in there, you'll see that they welded in basically like a washer with a hole. So rather than the force being distributed evenly across the bar, if you were to lose a lift, the force gets transferred right to these two thin washers and then right next to these pins. But okay, so that's fine. But the issue with it is that it is a nightmare to change the height of these safeties because you're having to search around for the other end. Now you can move it to the side, push it through, try to guide it through with your finger. It's a pain in the ass. So this method or this style, this is how every other pin and pipe safety system's done. I don't know where they came up with this, but the pin pipe safety setup on this is no good. I went and I got a quote from a local steel supply to see how much it would be just to purchase this pipe and just have it cut and just use bare pipe. And it was something, they wanted like something like $60, which I think was a little extreme. So I just said to hell with it, and I actually ended up purchasing some Rogue spotter arms because also I was concerned. I have a Rogue Ohio bar. I didn't want the steel to be damaging the knurling on rack pulls and whatever. So these are lined with UHMW too, so I can squat outside the rack, which I like. So there's that. The pin and pipe safeties are different. The other thing is the pull-up bar. This one, it comes with two separate bars as opposed to, this is the Rogue unit. And you can see how thick this steel is through here, really thick. And even the smaller bar here, it's on a plate, it's actually drilled through and it passes inside and then it's welded in, so super sturdy. Everything is very square on this. You can check it out. It's really, everything's just really square and really beefy. And then, you know, that gets mounted in between the two cross members here. But on this setup, it's two individual bars. One is 1 1/4 or 1 1/8, and then the other is a fat bar at 2 inches. But you can see how much thinner the plates are on this, and you can see the welds. They're not very confidence inspiring. Mine actually was pretty badly rusted. Apparently this was an issue in importing them. I wasn't the only one that had the issue. They ended up crediting me back $20 or $25 for it, or they said I can wait until they get back in stock to switch them out. So it didn't bother me. The rust wasn't on this area yet, but you can see the finish is pretty inconsistent. You have areas of high gloss to matte, whereas this one's all smooth matte finish. So the pull-up bar is a little bit different, not as beefy, and for this particular, the Rogue, you can see it, this is the welded, this is their standard model, it's welded. It's more expensive to ship it like this because obviously it's much larger. It's cheaper to ship them that way, you know, and they're importing them, so shipping's a concern. So they did a bolt through on the on this Titan HD, and you can see how thin. This is it's really thin steel here. And the problem was they weren't welded square. So in order for you to get these things to really pull up tight against the uprights, you really have to crank it down. And it ends up depressing. In order for you to tighten it up to close the gap here, it ends up pulling these washers, and you could see it kind of indent into the steel. And so the thing isn't welded up entirely square. You could see that here, if you look at these feet, they don't sit flat. Whereas if you look at the Rogue, sits totally flat. Not only that, but the thickness of this steel is much more substantial. It's a lot thicker, and you can look at the quality of the welds on the Rogue. It's very smooth welds, excellent penetration on those. They look really good. These, because the steel is thinner on these plates, they can't run as hot of a weld, and you can see it's a little sloppy. It's a little cold weld there, so doesn't look as good. But you can see even here, I think you can see the light coming through. You know, it's not totally square, this thing. What does that mean? What does that translate to? Well, the pin pipe safeties, you could, I don't know if you saw earlier when I was trying to take that one out, but it was very tight. So you know, because it's not lined up perfectly, so it's a tight fit on some of the pin pipes. So you can imagine wrestling these things in and out. I got frustrated. That's why I got this. So the other thing is the finish. The Rogue is a powder coated finish. The Titan HD is not. It's almost like it was like painted with like Rust-Oleum, like a spray paint, very thin. See, I scratched it there, but you know, I don't care so much about that. It's a cosmetic thing and it's a power rack. You know, it's living in the garage. I don't care. It's basically to save me if I were to drop a bar. But so I don't care about that. But the finish is a lot nicer on the Rogue. There's no doubt about it. The powder coated finish, it's just a lot nicer feel, a lot more durable and more consistent application of finish. Not only that, but if you look at like, see if I can catch it in the light, you see these ripples, and this is just the steel. It's just not as high a quality as the steel used on the Rogue rack. So kind of looks pitted a little bit. It's just kind of an unattractive finish. But again, this is, you know, an inexpensive import. So you're not going to expect it to be on par with something, you know, made in the US, powder coated. These holes, all the holes are laser cut on the Rogue. So everything's really high precision, and there's no burrs because of that. So you can feel in here, there's no burrs, really smooth. Whereas this, on the other hand, is drilled out. So you can see that the pressure to drill through this is 11 gauge, they're both 11 gauge steel. The pressure to drill through this is pretty substantial, especially when they're wanting to go, you know, they're producing these things, they want to pump them out as fast as possible. So they're putting in a lot of pressure on these things to drill these quicker. And as a result, you get this dimpling in the steel. You can see it in the light. You see how it kind of dimples in. So you get this dimpling in at these locations, and then you get burrs on the inside. So there are pieces, and actually on the uprights, or maybe, oh, actually on these cross members here, these are actually full of little pieces of rusted steel from when it was drilled through. And so these are drilled 2 inches. You can see that the Rogue, actually, the 1-inch drilling doesn't go as high as the Titan. Titan goes another 4 inches, but really in this range, that's not really a factor. You're not, you know, you wouldn't be putting the J-cups this high on the bench unless you're freakishly tall. But so that's just a small thing. Yeah, so the finish, the drilling on it, the thinner plates. The other thing is the hole size on this. These are laser cut, so they're really precise. You look at the fit of this J-cup in here, if I can get it to focus. It's a really tight fit. I mean, it's a really good fit. So, sorry, it's kind of tough to do this with one hand, but Jesus. So it's a tight fit, and there's no, you know, once it's in there, there's no real play in it. This one's pretty tight too, but you can see that the fit on this is pretty loose. It's a pretty loose fit. So when you're using the pin and pipe safeties and these J-cups, that's, you know, it's not that big of a deal. The issue is when you're trying to throw on accessories. So on the Titan rack, I went and I had purchased the spotter arms, which I really like having. They're really quick to move around, and they're great. But you can see here, so they fit. There is some slop in them because the fit isn't as tight on these, and because of the holes are looser. So, and what that means too is that it damaged it took off the finish off of that, whatever. It's not a big deal to me, but it from that movement. But the issue with the drilling is that because the holes are oversized and they're trying to space them evenly, you can't put the pin through on this because the spacing isn't equal. Whereas on the Rogue fits perfectly because it's precision cut. So these holes don't line up, so you can't put the pin in the bottom of those. So that's a factor. I have the Rogue Matador. It works on this thing, but because it's a slop, the holes are larger and there's a little bit more slop. Sorry, my dog's going. Come on. There's a little bit of slop in the Matador. The other thing is the stability on this thing. It's not bad. Well, that doesn't make it look very good, but I mean, it moves, but you're not shaking in that direction. Forward and back, which is where it really matters, there's no motion. Side to side, that's no big deal. Forward and back, there isn't really any movement. And I have mine bolted down into the cement with Tapcons. You can also mount it on a platform. So it has the band pegs, and it also came with plate storage. But to be honest, on a rack this small, I wouldn't use it. I did use the plate storage, but because I was using this as a half rack basically. So I would squat and bench and do rack pulls from the spotter arms out in front. And then I'd have the plates mounted on the back. So I turned my power rack into a half rack basically, with the plates. But I don't think I'm going to do that on the on this Rogue. I think I'm just going to. I have a weight tree for those weights there, but I also have some. I also have a few 100 pounds of bumpers that I'll just probably get a separate rack for. But so those are some of the key differences. I mean, the quality difference is pretty substantial between the two. Functionally, if you're just looking for a rack to have in the garage and you know, use it every once in a while, I think it's a better option than maybe some of these cheaper racks like the Powerline. I'm not sure. There are some other, you know, around $400 racks that you might, you know, I think this might be a better option. Because for me, I like the line. J-cups was a factor. The size, you know, I'm not squatting 1,000 pounds. So this 1,000-pound capacity for me, I mean, isn't that big of a deal? But, you know, if you're approaching 600-pound squat, you know, at this price range, this may be one of your only options. But if you can save up, if you saved up the $400 for the Titan, I would say, you know, have some top ramen for a little bit longer, save up the extra money, and go for the original, the Rogue. I mean, support a U.S.-based company employing, you know, Americans, American labor, high quality product. You know, as soon as I clicked buy it now on the rack, I kind of had a little bit of regret about it because I didn't want to support a business that would take a product from a company that is, all they do is fitness equipment. Rogue is like known high quality stuff. These guys import like trailers and things. And I just felt guilty about the fact that Titan took a high quality, highly reviewed product, saw their tech specs, and basically just copied it. Sent it, exported it to China, had it manufactured, imported it back to the US, and was trying to undercut them on price to grab some of that market share. So I felt a little bit guilty about it. That's why I ended up getting the R3, and I'm going to pass this one along. But I don't know. So there are some of the differences. You can see the Titan looks very similar in a lot of ways, but it's far, far, far from a Rogue R3. Despite some of the reviews that may be up on the Titan website or photos that you'll see that may be a little bit misleading, the quality difference is pretty substantial. Some of the smaller issues may dissuade you from going this route. The pin pipe safeties, for example, are a nightmare. The fact that it's not perfectly square, for me, it's a little bit annoying fighting these pin pipes, moving them in and out. You know, and that's it. So if you can afford it, go the R3. If you're looking at the Titan HD, just be aware of some of its shortcomings and be conscious of the fact that you're not going to get a Rogue R3 clone that's going to be the same in every way. It's just not the way it'll work out. It works out. It's a lower quality product. So just be aware of that. Thought I'd do a video to share because there isn't a lot of information out in the Titan HD, and there certainly isn't a side-by-side comparison. So I thought I would throw that out there. So hopefully it's been helpful to some of you guys and will help you make a little bit more of an informed decision. You know, so good luck and enjoy.